Hello and welcome to another video tutorial Monday. This week I wanted to play with some new products that I just got in. These are from Nellie Snellen, and she has a line of dies and stamps out, and I wanted to give them a try and show you how the dies work, especially because they're really cool. So first I'm going to start out by stamping this fairy, and this one is called Frog on Flower. You can see other ones that are really cute as well. They're kind of Asian influenced almost, but really sketchy, really cute. And I'm going to color this in with colored pencils because I haven't done a lot of colored pencil coloring lately. And so I'm actually going to turn my stamp over to ink it up. And I'll be going over these lines with a pen when I'm done as well, because the colored pencil is so intense and thick, it will cover up the lines and make them look kind of cloudy. So you don't need to make the image perfect, you just need to make it crisp. And I'm going to be cutting her out, so it doesn't need to be particularly centered or anything like that. Alright, so looks like I should probably re-ink my pad soon, but that's good enough for now because I'm going to color over the lines anyways and have to redraw them in. So I'm going to cut out this girl and then her little frog on the flower friend here, and then I'm going to put it in a frame. And she'll be a little bit bigger than this biggest frame, but that's okay. But I wanted to go ahead and cut my frame out and show you how this die works. So I'm going to pull out my Big Shot, and this die will fit through your die cut machine just like any wafer thin die would, so spellbinders, paper tray ink dies, just like that. It comes attached to the cardboard in the package actually, but I carefully peeled it off the cardboard and then put it just on a piece of thick cardstock so it's the same width as the cardboard, because you need that little extra give behind it. Your die cut machine might be different, maybe your die cut machine's a little bit tighter than mine is, but I found that it doesn't cut through the paper completely unless I put this extra piece of paper behind it. And all these dies are separate. You can see, you can lift up this one, and they have these little grooves on all four sides that you line up to match them up again when you want to cut out the whole thing. But you could take out the middle frame, you could take out the center one, and you're left with all sorts of different possibilities, and it's really cool. But I'm going to cut these all together just to show you how they work. And I'm going to center it in the top of this card up here. And I don't think I'll be using this base craft, but I want to be able to use it on a future project, that's why I'm centering it. And then I'm just going to, with all my tabs down, put my sandwich in between the two clear plates, make sure that it is centered on my cardstock, put my other plate over it, and then roll it through. And it's a little bit tight going through, but that's how you want it because there's a lot of intricate cuts. And I roll it back through just to be safe. And what's really cool is because this die has little pieces of foam in all of the little indentations, it helps pop out all the little pieces, so you don't have to do it with a paper piercer. Some of their dies have this, and I really love that feature. So as you can see here, we have this wonderful set of frames, and all of these pieces just fall right out, and you can actually put them back in to the die like this and then just kind of rub over it and all the pieces fall out. So this is what we're left with here, and we have this bottom piece, which would be great to use as a frame on a card. We have this piece, which is what we'll be using on the card today. Then this piece, and then this centerpiece. So you get a huge variety in this one die, and this one die retails for right about around $12. So that's a ton of uses for one die. And just to kind of show you the possibilities with this die, I'm going to run it through my die cut machine one more time with a piece of scrap cardstock, only taking out this center one. So now we have the same outer frame that we had before, but then we have this interesting inner frame where it just skips the middle part, but you have this awesome like front and center place to put a really cute maybe embellishment or even a small sentiment, and then the same centerpiece. So you can see you could totally mix and match these, or you could just use the outside frame and this inner side would, or inner piece would be completely solid, so you just have a scallop frame. And then you could do the same thing with the middle one. So many possibilities with these dies, and I love how you can use them together. And since there's that adhesive on our piece of cardstock here that holds it all together, you can line the die right back up and it will cut exactly like I showed you in the beginning of the video. And you just use these little notches to line it back up, and then you're back in business. Alright, so I'm now ready to start coloring my image, and I've picked out a few colors that I can use on the fairy and, well, the whole colored image. I like to do this before I start coloring my image so that I can really get an idea of what colors I'll want to use, and then I can just stick to these 8 colors that I have here, and it won't get too busy and there won't be too many colors used. So I'm also going to grab a couple for her hair, and I think I want to make her a brunette. So I'll just grab these 2 for now, and then I can start coloring. So I am done coloring in my image, and now I'm going to go over the lines with my pen. This is a Signal Uniball black. I kind of switch back and forth whether I use a pen or a marker. Usually it's just like whatever I find on my desk. So I'm just going to make the lines darker with my pen, and I will be back in just a second. Alright, so I'm back. And I have colored over the lines with my pen, and then I just cut around the edges, just pretty roughly, just trying to keep a consistent border around the outside of the image, as you can see here. And that black line just adds so much crazy dimension. It's awesome. It really makes it come alive. Okay, so now it's time to start assembling our cards. So first we're going to first I'm going to ink the edges of our little cutout image here, just to make them a little bit less harsh. And I'm using some old paper distressing and going around pretty lightly. I'm not too worried about making it perfect. And then I'm just going to use my distressing tool around the edges of my craft piece as well. And now I'm ready to assemble my base here. So I'm going to use this stamp from Hero Arts in Basic Gray from their out of print collection. It's called Flower Dot Pattern. And I'm just going to use it to add a subtle texture that kind of goes along with the theme of the card of like flowery and kind of whimsical. So I'm going to use my Speckled Egg ink on some Aqua Mist cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. And I'll ink this up pretty well. And then I'll just flip my card base over on the stamp and then press it down. And then use one hand to press down and the other to hold it. And just make sure I get the whole card covered. And that stamp is just gorgeous. It works so well. And that ink looks really fantastic too on that Aquamist cardstock. Almost like a watermark effect, but a little bit more vibrant than a watermark effect. So now I'm going to start adhering my things to my card. I want my craft frame to go right about here on the card. So what I'm going to do to adhere this is use some foam adhesive just around this solid edge here. So I'm going to need some thin strips. This is the perfect use for this tape from, I think it's from Scotch or 3M. And it's perfect because you can cut one length and then just cut off thin strips from it. And then you only have to place it once on each side versus having to place a whole bunch of little squares. And I use my Tim Holtz scissors for this because they're non-stick and they're serrated, so they really cut through pretty much everything. Now I can just place down my frame here, and I'm just going to center it a little bit towards the top. And then once I get it where I want it, I can actually press it into place. But this is the benefit of using tape that isn't necessarily as sticky for a project like this where you really want to get it centered, is you definitely have some time to play with it before you have to press it down or peel it back up accidentally. And now our little fairy girl is going to go right about here, and we're going to put her up on a double layer of adhesive or an 1/8 of an inch, since we just used 1/16 of an inch. So I like these from Ranger. They're nice and thick, and the backing comes off really easily. So they're really fun to place and easy to adhere. The important thing is to keep in mind where the girl is going to overlap the frame, because you don't want to have the full layer of 1/8 of an inch adhesive down. You want to have some of the shorter adhesive. And this will keep it up where it's supposed to be and on top of the frame. And now we can place down our little flower, and I'm just going to trim off this end at an angle here because that's how the drawing ends. But I'm going to round it a little bit just to make it a little bit harsh so your eye doesn't automatically get drawn there. Since it's not a very interesting part of the drawing, we don't really want people to look there first, necessarily. And then we can prepare a little sentiment to go across the bottom, and I'm using this brand new stamp set from Lawn Fawn called Many Thanks, and I'm using the stamp set that says Many Thanks on it, and just a piece of white cardstock, and I'll center this on it and then cut some banner edges on it, since I've definitely been loving that look lately. And this doesn't look quite straight on here, so I'm going to line it up using the grid on my mat here, and that will help me make sure it's straight. That's really, my grid is especially helpful for longer sentiments like this one. And with a more delicate stamp like this one especially, you don't want to press down too hard on it, because if you do, you'll get some ghosting, like you can see here, where it gets a little bit too dark and kind of gray edges around it. So if that happens, just flip it over and try again. And that's what I do when I press too hard or I move the stamp a little bit when I'm doing it. I just flip it over. Now I'm just going to use my square punch, and any square punch would work for this. And I'm going to mark two things. The center, so I'm going to do a line right here. And if you draw lightly, and this is high quality cardstock, so if you draw lightly, it'll erase with no problem. It won't leave a mark at all. And then using my grid mat, I'm just going to measure out a 1/2 inch from where the sentiment ends, And this will just be a good marker for me to judge by when I'm using my square punch. And so I'm just going to go in a little bit, about this far in there, and then I'll mimic that same depth on the other side. So you can even look at where the line was while you punch the other one. And that's the way to get the perfect sentiment every time. Now I'll just take my nice eraser and then erase those pencil lines. And then ink the edges with the old paper distress ink. And a little change of plans here. I was going to put the white cardstock directly onto the card with some foam adhesive, but then I decided that it looked a little plain. It needed a little bit more. So I'm actually going to use this Hawaiian Shores cardstock, which matches the the speckled egg blue pretty closely. So I'm just going to cut this at 5/8 of an inch to give it a nice 1/16 of an inch border around the 1/2 inch piece. And I think I will ink the edges of this and then stick it directly to the card. And this will just give it a little bit of a base to stand on. You probably won't even be able to tell it's there without looking hard. I think this needs a little bit of corner rounding. So I'm going to, I think I'll do a 1/2 inch. Yeah, 1/2 inch looks good. And I think this needs just a little bit of bling. So I'm going to add some of these crystals. They're from Kaiser Craft with my X-Acto knife. And I'm going to add them in her hair for just a cute little touch. And I'll add a big one. I'll add a big one, a medium one, and a small one, and do them in a little triangle. And that adds the perfect little touch of pink bling. I love it. I think I'm going to leave it like this for this week. I love that little touch of bling, but don't want to overdo it because I think the image is so cute. It needs to shine by itself. So yeah, so here's a picture of the finished card. And here's a close-up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you again next week on another Video Tutorial Monday.